Feminism is a cult. I cut my teeth making videos by critiquing feminism. Fast forward several years later and feminism is all but universally derided online, to the point that only mainstream mouthpieces promote it. This has led to increasingly authoritarian measures to silence dissent. Although growing rejection of feminism means that criticising the movement is becoming tired and repetitive. What I'm therefore not going to do here is make a typical video mocking feminist academics and activists like Anita Sarkeesian and Jessica Valenti. Instead, I'm going to delve into the occult roots of feminism that your average supporter of the movement will not be aware of, since they're essentially uninitiated neophytes kept in the dark until they're suitably indoctrinated. So what are the occult origins of feminism, and do they help us understand why feminists are so irrational? Feminism is sometimes referred to as something akin to a religion, but I would say a cult is far more accurate. This explains why there's no getting through to a feminist. No facts or logic will make them see sense because their worldview isn't shaped by reason. Some would argue that all religions operate in this fashion, but I like to distinguish between a religion and a cult by explaining that a religion should not aim to interfere with objective reality and should actually enhance it by giving a spiritual explanation for those that don't feel science or reason is sufficient. A cult, however, seeks to brainwash followers into accepting that reality and truth are subjective, so you need to rely on the wisdom of authorities. With this in mind, if you want to know why a feminist will never accept that the pay gap is a myth or the patriarchy isn't real, even if it hurts men, it's because feminism originated in occult mythology, and I'm going to explain why. I mentioned in the past that feminism came about as a secular reaction to the Age of Reason, where occult traditions had to adapt by reinventing themselves accordingly. Feminism comes from the occult tradition of the sacred or divine feminine, where female energy will bring the world back into balance. In the New Age movement, it's believed that the divine feminine will take us to the age of Aquarius, the next evolutionary state of consciousness. The well-known 1969 song by Fifth Dimension called Age of Aquarius was written about this very transition, and although the roots of the New Age movement go back much further, it was the 60s that really brought the concept of a New Age into the public consciousness. This has become so popular that it's seamlessly integrated itself into the world around us, from the 12 signs of the zodiac to the sacred feminine, secularized and popularized through the feminist movement. In the postmodern era we are now living in, masculinity is considered destructive and antithetical to balance and harmony. The reason for this is very easy to see once you know where it comes from. Many will have heard the term toxic masculinity. It originates in the occult goddess traditions, where the sacred and divine feminine is elevated above the masculine, which is one manifestation of the left-hand path. The right-hand path tradition teaches that male and female nature is complementary. When these exist in harmony, they lead to true balance, creating order over chaos. But the left-hand path attempts to create order out of chaos through rebellion and invasion. In this instance, females are taught that male energy is toxic, even to other males. Suddenly, it becomes much easier to see why masculinity is treated as pathological or toxic in our current culture, to the extent that other men are taught to reject their masculinity and to act more like women. It also explains why feminists and soy boy hipsters aren't interested in mansplaining, because they've been taught that female empowerment can lead to a golden age, much like the age of Aquarius that New Agers believe the divine feminine will lead to. Years ago, a video released by the so-called conscious men named Dear Woman created outrage in the manosphere. Whether or not you agree with this section of the internet, it was nonetheless the most servile and cringeworthy attempt to apologise for all the perceived evils in the world caused by men. These men felt they had the right to apologise on behalf of their entire sex, much like the way feminists feel they have the right to speak for all women. The video was also a declaration that men should embrace their femininity and move beyond dualistic concepts of masculine and feminine. This is exactly the same as left-hand path goddess occultism, which inverts masculinity and femininity by making men more like women and women more like men. This video is a perfect example of the negative influence that feminism has had on masculinity. It has all the traits of left-hand path rebellion, namely the order out of chaos caused by the denigration of masculinity as shameful or harmful. When you're able to look beyond the facade, it's easy to notice the repackaging of old ideas seamlessly between secular feminism and New Age occultism. Once we're more aware of this, we can truly begin to grasp the occult origins of feminism in more depth. Feminist anthropologists, influenced most notably by the work of Maria Gimbutas, have always been desperate to prove that matriarchal cultures coincide with a golden era of human civilization. Despite the feminist desperation to prove otherwise, there haven't really been any purely matriarchal civilizations to speak of, and any historically prominent female roles generally involved the elevation of superstition and female superiority, much like the popularity of New Age woo-woo amongst women today. Meanwhile, cultures shaped by men, particularly white men, have been the driving force of human progress, even if there were setbacks along the way. Naturally, feminists try to invert this history in accordance with the left-hand path, by claiming the opposite is true. Part of that is the myth of matriarchal prehistory, where feminists believe that if we could only return to this, we would achieve utopia. But while matriarchal civilizations are a revisionist myth, females have often acted as priestesses, such as those in Mesopotamia. In ancient Greece, the priest class of goddess cults were also often occupied exclusively by females. Feminism seeks to return to a time when women were respected as enlightened spiritualists and priestesses. Before this was dismissed as superstitious nonsense. Another important piece of the occult origins of feminism is theosophy, founded by Helena Blavatsky. As one of the most prominent occult voices, Blavatsky inspired early feminists in the 19th century, before their movement took a secular turn. Joy Dickson documents this in her book Divine Feminine, Theosophy and Feminism in England, explaining that many of the suffragettes were members of the Theosophical Society, which then influenced early feminism. In recent times, the New Age movement, also inspired by theosophy, has served as a bridge between secular feminism and the occult. To really understand the occult tradition that feminism stems from, you need to go back to the Garden of Eden. One way or another, the occult inverts this story, with feminism stemming from the archetype of Lilith, Adam's first wife. She insisted she was Adam's equal because they were both formed from the same earth, refused to lie below him during intercourse, and constantly fought with her husband for dominance. When she eventually left Adam, he asked God to bring her back to the Garden of Eden. God sent his angels to find her, but she refused to return, becoming a lover of the archangel Samael instead, and vowing to cause suffering to children. As a result of this myth, Lilith has become the symbol of the domineering woman that denounces marriage and motherhood.
After God created Adam, he said, "It is not good for man to be alone." He then created a woman from the earth, as he had created Adam himself, and called her Lilith. Two texts, excluded from the Bible, tell her story in detail. The first is called the Zohar, also known as the Book of Splendor, probably written in the 13th century. The other, called the Alphabet of Ben Sira, is a collection of writings compiled in the Middle Ages. Though both are medieval, they are said to rest on traditions dating back into antiquity. Lilith herself appears to be a monstrous creature dating from prehistoric times. Carvings thought to portray her as such have been found in Egypt, Sumeria, Babylonia, and Greece.
At its core, feminism is the modern heir to the occult archetype of Lilith, where women are taught to dominate men and hate motherhood. But though women are never slaves, chaos is the inevitable result of a culture where women don't accept the leadership of men and their roles as mothers. This is RockingMrE, over and out.